I don't know if you've ever really thought about the words to that song and what they mean to you, but somehow it's always deeply touched me. It's always felt so deep and soulful. And the understanding that I have of it at this time, as I hear the verses of that song, I believe we can all relate to. And that is that in the beginning, sometimes we're seeking for love outside of us, and we're broken and disappointed, and it doesn't work out the way we thought it should. But that's looking for love outside. When we know where love really resides, in the fullness of our own hearts, and we allow ourselves to be known, to be ourselves. Oh, doesn't that let the pressure off? Who else can we really be but ourselves? And in the end, we come full circle back to the place of give God the praise and insert any word you want for God. For me right now, love and life are so representative of what I experience as God, good, omnipotence, omnipresence, all-knowing. It's very life itself. And it's no accident that here we are, right, in December with 12 powers. And what is December? What is 12? Life. Life. Full circle. Just like the Advent wreath. This is how I see the Advent wreath. I use everything for my good, and it's so fun. Advent simply means to come. What's to come? And I look at it as, hello, here are the coming attractions. You want to know what's coming? Christ, Christmas, more Christ. Each of us being called into the fullness of who we are, our Christ selves, not out there, not in some person that was born 2,000 years ago, right here and right now. Every time we project it out there and say, oh goodness, wish it could have been me. And all the scriptures tell us over and over and over, and all we have to do is listen with new ears and see with new eyes and see that, as it says in John chapter 8, verse 12, I am the light of the world. All those who follow me will not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. And it's like, here we are on this Advent wreath. Circle, no beginning, no ending. It's like, here's my invitation. Jump in wherever you are. Just jump in no matter where we are. I look at hope as training wheels for faith. It's like, got a little hope on, get my training wheels on, and I'm on my way to faith. I get to faith because I know that life is for me. Oh my God, I'm filled with peace. The peace that passeth all understanding. We can't try to wrap our minds around this. We have to let go and let God have its way with us so that we can just stay in the flow of life. And when we're in the flow of life, completely centered in peace, knowing that all good is here for us, how can we do anything but love? And when we find ourselves moving out of love and out of peace and feeling like we're broken and we don't have the faith to carry on, we ask ourselves the $1,000,000 question. How can I love a little bit more in this moment? You mean this moment, the one where I'm suffering and struggling and I feel like there's no end? Yeah, that one. That exact moment that we have to look at what we're making up about it all and just jump in, because the river's flowing. It's flowing. It always is. It always will be. It always has been. And if we find ourselves on the banks looking in, wishing we could be in the flow, right there in the moment is the key to our happiness. Step in. Just step in. What are we waiting for? And then we end up in the full expression of life, which is Joy. Joy. But don't try to stay there. We don't need to try to stay there. Because in the next moment, something can come along that wants to take us out of that joy. Just surrender to it. It is in the fighting what is and the resisting it that we end up struggling more. Can you relate to that? Yeah. It's like, I'm going to go back to what I shared last month. That here I felt this call. Thank you, Joe. I felt this call. I heard this call so clearly, and I was filled with peace. It wasn't even on my radar that I was going to go take care of my mother. It wasn't even on my radar. But I was open and unattached, like I love to be. Because why hold on? That's where it's painful. And I heard this invitation. Oh, Christine, it's you. You're going to go do this. And between that moment and this moment, a lot has happened. Can you imagine? A lot has happened. But I'm going to tell you something. The one thing that has stayed with me, besides the feeling of total peace, is love. To know that there is nothing else in this universe but love. So how could I do it wrong? When we say yes to Spirit, why would we think that we're going to be abandoned? Why would we think that we could even do it wrong? Life wants to flow through us. And this Advent wreath and this season is just one example to remind us how brilliant we are that we create a calendar that has all these significant little dates that we call meaningful. They are, if we use them. You see, I bring my tools wherever I go. Have wand, will travel. I've got my Santa hat on, which is going to Barbara for her birthday, Barbara. And I've got my love pillow, love no matter what. Because these are my reminders. They speak to my heart. They remind me when I'm afraid. If I'm feeling like I'm struggling or I'm feeling afraid of anything. And so when I get to use things like Deepak Chopra's 20 lessons of creating a beautiful spiritual life, what I'm going to talk about just in this moment that has to do with Deepak's message, it's lesson 12, of course. Keep it easy, right? It's month 12, lesson 12. Why think any further than that? We turn to lesson 12, and it's all about this season. It's all about being in the flow of life and realizing that I know it looks chaotic, but you see, chaos is just another face for order, and order is another face for chaos. There is no difference or no separation in that. If we can trust and have faith in the midst of chaos, a pattern emerges. A pattern actually emerges out of the chaos when we stay centered in ourselves, when we breathe into our heart and we know that there's nothing to be afraid of. The fear dissolves and the pattern emerges and the way is shown to us, and there's divine order again. And then we're in divine order, and all of a sudden it blows up and something else is happening and something else wants to be birthed. But why are we afraid? I believe that being afraid is really, I want to say, this is really huge, but it's part of the old paradigm. It's part of the old paradigm that's falling away. There is nothing to be afraid of. If we know that we are here on purpose for a purpose, and that purpose is holy, and we're guided, and we're loved, and we're supported, and that wherever we are is perfect. And if anybody's been told anything other than that, you get to choose whether you believe that or not. You see, because Merlin, one of my favorite wizards in the whole wide world, Merlin says that humans make rules. Wizards don't live by rules. You know why? They don't need them. They don't even live by choices. And it really confused Arthur when Merlin said, I don't even live by choices. And Arthur says, what are you talking about? You make choices every day. No, I don't. I just get out of the way and allow life to flow through me. I surrender to God, and God directs me. And so here they were in the woods one day, enjoying, as Merlin always said to Arthur, pay attention to the little details. Pay attention to the animals speaking to you. And there's a little blue jay on a branch and looks over at Merlin and Arthur, and he starts squawking at him and chastising them and talking to him. Jumps down on another branch, and he's just going away chattering. Jumps down on the ground and starts pecking for a worm and pecking at some bark and forgets about Merlin, and Arthur's standing there. All of a sudden, he's off onto something else. And Merlin says, what do you think about that way of life? And Arthur says, wow, looks like a feather brain nothing that's just not even having understanding at all of what's going on in life. And basically Merlin says, oh, so you think not struggling is where it's at? Not being in the flow of a simple creature who solely depends on what's before him, doesn't need any rules or ideas about what he's supposed to be doing? And I love, he says, after Arthur says that he's basically a brainless feather ball with no idea about what to do next, Merlin says, so it appears whenever a creature lives solely trusting in God, it spends its days following one careless impulse after another with no thought to the future, and yet gets along well enough, you have to admit. You know? Doesn't that sound like a better plan? Ease and grace and joy and glory, knowing that if we are given an idea from God, divine mind, the impulse of the universe wanting to flow through us, why would we then trip ourselves up thinking that somehow we're going to be caught off guard and broken down and abandoned and left to our own devices, perhaps? But when we get out of the way and let life flow, which it's trying to do, and stop worrying about all of these things, but live in faith and live knowing that as long as we call ourselves back to center, take a breath in the midst of what seems like chaos. Take a breath so that the pattern can emerge. It's so powerful to listen so that we can hear what the universe is calling us to do. And we don't have to carry this load on our own. Nobody has to do it alone. That's why it's so powerful to come into community and to know that we are here for one another, and that we can reach out our hands to one another and open our hearts and literally ask each other, what can I do to serve you? What can I do to serve you? The best thing that any of us can do in the moment of struggle or fear, this might sound counterintuitive, but it is powerful, and that is to be of service. Right? Get out of ourselves and be of service. How may I serve you? What can I do for you today? Ben, you are a beautiful example of being of service and sharing your gifts. Thank you. We are being called into oneness. We are being called to work together to create a world that works for all. And we are being called to get out of the way so that the flow of life can happen. And when we join in this Advent wreath where there is no beginning and no end, it doesn't matter where we are in this moment. What matters is to know that each of us matters. That's what matters. In oneness, we are guided, we are loved, and use this season to awaken to our Christ self so that we know that this more that we're looking for is already here. It's already here. Take a breath on that one and simply say thank you. Literally, let's do that. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.